On Wednesday of this week, Donald Trump will hit 100 days in office. As he approaches that milestone, a reminder of what he declared and promised to the American people.
I return to the presidency confident and optimistic that we are at the start of a thrilling new era of national success. A tide of change is sweeping the country. Sunlight is pouring over the entire world. And America has the chance to seize this opportunity like never before.
All right, well, fast forward 3 months, and the vibe isn't exactly sunshine radiating across the globe. In fact, the American people are serving Trump and his MAGA administration a sobering reality check. Our new polling shows that 55% disapprove of the way Trump is handling his job as president. A new Washington Post ABC News Ipsos poll also finds his approval ratings have fallen 6 points since February. And when you zero in on Trump's major policies, the results are even more stark. More than half of adults don't like how Trump is handling immigration, managing the federal government, and looking out for the interests of average Americans. And when it comes to the economy, foreign relations, tariffs, and turmoil in the stock market, a staggering 60% do not approve. Now, Trump's 100-day rating is lower than any U.S. president since the 1940s. It's a striking referendum on the dramatic shifts that have come to define the past few months. We've watched Trump upend long-established precedents and sign more than 100 executive orders in an attempt to remake the U.S. government in his image. He's taken his attacks on critics to new extremes, taking aim at universities, law firms, student activists, even the courts. He's gutted federal agencies. He shattered the post-World War II global order and intensely escalated immigration enforcement by deporting immigrants that even include U.S. citizens. It is safe to say that he is testing the limits of presidential power. What could happen in the next 100 days? White House officials say we can expect the administration to focus on trade deals and peace talks. In the words of one Trump official, there are, quote, lots of torpedoes under the water. And executive actions are going to continue like a, quote, snowball running downhill. Trump's unpopular policies will soon face a huge test as well. He is asking GOP lawmakers to deliver on his big, beautiful bill to extend tax cuts, slash an estimated $1.5 trillion in federal spending, and fund his crackdown on immigration. And of course, as Congress returns from recess, Republicans face a major test of unity to pass that spending plan after muscling through a budget framework earlier this month. Also on the table, the question surrounding Trump's demands to some of the country's largest law firms and whether he has violated the law. Democratic Senator Richard Blumenthal and Congressman Jamie Raskin recently wrote to 5 of those law firms, which made deals with the president before he could target them in executive orders. They write, quote, your agreement makes you complicit in efforts to undermine the rule of law and to turn private attorneys into President Trump's personal law firm. Starting us off this Sunday, one of the authors of that letter, Democratic Congressman Jamie Raskin of Maryland. Congressman, it's great to have you back on the show. Before we get into the specifics of that letter, I want to get your thoughts as we near the 100-day mark of Donald Trump's second term. It is hard to imagine that it's only been about 100 days, given what some say is this unprecedented damage that has been done to our federal government. What are you hearing from your constituents, and what strikes you about this 3-month mark for Trump's second term?
Well, great anguish and upset, both among my constituents in Maryland's beautiful 8th District, but across Maryland, across the country. Donald Trump destroyed $6 to $7 trillion in retirement savings and individual and company wealth. He plunged us into a trade war with the entire world, except for his buddies in Moscow. He's been wrecking federal departments and agencies by firing people wholesale without any due process at all. And, of course, he's been trampling due process when it comes to the rights of immigrants in the country. So it's pretty much a horror show. The good news is that people are standing up all over the country. We've got institutions like Harvard University and like WilmerHale that are standing up against this. And been leading the way forward. We've got labor unions like AFGE, the AFL-CIO itself, which have said no way. So the country is in an uproar about this full-blown assault both on democracy and the major achievements of democracy, like Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, where they want to cut $880 billion over the next couple of weeks. So that's the coming showdown as we come back to Congress this week.
And I certainly admire and respect, sir, your optimism. But on the other side of that, you have universities like Columbia that have capitulated. And as you and your colleague, Senator Richard Blumenthal, have written to some of the top law firms demanding transparency and accountability, there's concern that those law firms, powerful law firms, have also capitulated. What is important for viewers to know about these deals between the Trump administration and these law firms? And in what ways, if at all, do you believe any of this action, any of their actions, may have violated the law?
Well, the first thing to note is there's no safety in appeasing authoritarians. So Donald Trump comes forward and says, for the first time in American history, I'm mad at this law firm and that law firm and that law firm, and I'm not going to allow any of you into federal buildings, including courthouses. I'm going to revoke your federal security clearance. I'm going to deny you federal contracts because I don't like what one of your lawyers or one of your former lawyers once did. It's obviously blatantly unconstitutional, and yet so many law firms led by Paul Weiss-Rifkin just gave in out of fear that, they were going to be trampled in the process, and somehow they thought they could deal with this monster. But the law firms that have stood up, like Perkins Coie and Sussman Godfrey and Wilmer Hale, have shown the way because they went to court, and within a matter of days, they got injunctions against this lawlessness, which obviously violates the freedom of speech, the right to counsel, due process, and so on. And it's the same thing with Harvard University. You've got Columbia on one hand, which buckled under, and now they're continuing to be shaken down by the administration. And you've got Harvard, which said, no way, you're not going to run our university. And that's a much safer way to go. But Donald Trump shook down the law firms for nearly $1 billion in pro bono legal aid, meaning that they're going to be having their, junior associates working for Donald Trump and his pet pro bono causes, whether it's anti-choice or anti-environment or anti-union. That means those firms are going to be conflicted out of doing pro-choice, pro-union, pro-environment work. There is no safety in appeasing authoritarians.
And of course, our citizens would expect that the FBI would also do its part. You're asking for an FBI investigation into Trump's pick for U.S. Attorney in D.C., Ed Martin, who failed to disclose, I believe, more than 150 appearances he made on Russian media over the past 8 years. He was supposed to provide a breakdown of all of his commentary. He has not done that. One, why do you think that's important? And two, can this FBI, under the leadership of Kash Patel, which to some, has operated as Trump's law enforcement agency, actually going to investigate this in a meaningful and serious way?
Well, they certainly must do that. It's pretty shocking that in reporting his media appearances, he categorically omitted his regular appearances over a 7 or 8 year period on Russia Today and on Sputnik, which are basically Russian propaganda channels that ended up having to register as Russian agents because the U.S. government insisted that they do that. He just omitted those and dropped those. And so what we're asking Kash Patel to investigate, what we want the FBI and the Department of Justice to probe, is whether this was a deliberate categorical omission of all these appearances or whether it was somehow accidental or negligent. We need some explanation of why, and then we need to know what exactly is his relationship to Russian intelligence and counterintelligence, Russian propaganda entities, and to Vladimir Putin. Obviously, we need to know that. That's not the only problem with the U.S. Attorney designate, Ed Martin, in any event. This is a guy who was there on January 6th, who described it as Mardi Gras, who has participated in every form of January 6th denialism. And then was representing January 6 defendants. And even when he became the acting U.S. attorney and went into the government, he dropped charges against his own clients, against his own defendants. He was operating on both sides of the V, on the government side and also on the defendant side, which is just unheard of. It's just like a hallmark violation of ethics. He's also praised a neo-Nazi Holocaust revisionist and then pretended as if he didn't know all of the things he'd been engaged in, and that too seems to be debunked by press reports.
Let me get your thoughts, Congressman, on the GOP's budget bill when Congress comes back into session from the recess. The stakes of what they're proposing in their plan with these enormous cuts, which threaten key federal programs like Medicaid. What are the chances this actually gets passed?
Well, in some sense, it's really in the hands of the people, because we know Donald Trump and the organized MAGA party is driving to do this. They want to cut $880 billion out of Medicaid. They want to dismantle everything from Meals on Wheels to Head Start, child nutrition programs, SNAP, you name it. This is a war of the richest people in America against the middle class, the working class, and the poor. And that's the only way of understanding what they're doing. But I say it's up to the people because there are at least a dozen Republican members of the House and probably a half dozen in the Senate who are extremely nervous about this because they understand the profound rumblings that are taking place across the country against this authoritarianism and against this elite attack on the programs that democracy is built. And so the Republicans in these swing districts need to hear from their constituents that this is intolerable and unacceptable, and they've got to understand that they're basically writing the last chapter of their political careers if they go ahead and support it.
Yeah, we've been seeing more and more of frustration brewing with ordinary citizens in many of these constituent town halls that Republicans have been holding in their districts.